Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else that we try to wrap my head around to get the whole mental health thing back in order. Even though my mental health is still off, like usual. Anyway, so this week I wanted to touch on the release schedule for the upcoming year 2026. And I feel sorry for the constructed people that play 60 card formats. I'm glad I don't anymore. Mostly because trying to keep up with Standard when Standard was what Standard was back in 2018 was still a lot. And now they don't really have any choice but to use the Universe Beyond cards that are legal because they, they've played to a meta. Like in Commander, you can kind of get away with doing basically whatever you want. If you want to ignore every Universes Beyond set, you can. I just I wasn't terribly excited for Spider-Man. Not that I don't like Spider-Man, I just wasn't terribly interested in any of the cards, Like the Avatar: The Last Airbender set, I actually have a little bit of excitement for. And it's for the stupidest reason. It has new allies, and I have not updated my allies list since, again, 2018. But I'm getting beside the point. So they announced what was coming next year, and there's 7 sets set to release, 3 of which are in universe, and 4 of which are Universes Beyond. And there are people that have some big feelings about that. Personally, I couldn't care less. But that's beside the point. Universes Beyond are not going to disappear just because a minority of the player base does not like them. If they want to see change, they have to not buy it. And they have to convince multiple people not to buy it. Because as long as it's making Wizards of the Coast money, they're going to keep doing it. And it is clearly making them money because they keep doing it. Now, personally, do I think Universes Beyond should be limited to just secret layers? No. Do I wish they kept them kind of like what they did with the Assassin's Creed set? Again, not really, because I don't like paying a premium price for less cards. To that same token, I don't think the Final Fantasy set should have been a standard set at premium pricing. That's mostly what grinds my gears about that. Regardless, I think if they kept the sets like they did the Lord of the Rings set, it was a modern legal set. It had some powerful things, but it did not warp the entire meta of modern with the whole set, right? And so I think if we kept that model where the sets are legal in everything modern and onwards, and we left standard to in-universe, I don't think that as many people would care. And that's just how I think about it. Now, personally, again, do I care about Universes Beyond stuff? Some of it. I was very excited for Final Fantasy. I was not excited to see how much it was going to cost me to get my hands on some of it. But Final Fantasy has been one of my great loves for years. I played the original Final Fantasy X on PS2 when it came out. That hits different, And over the years, I have played most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. I didn't really get into 11 when it was a thing, or 14. But I've gone back and I've played like 1, 2, and 3. They were on like a single game cartridge that I used to have for my old DS. And I beat all of them. I've not played 4, 5, or 6. But I have played 7, the 7 remake. I started 8, but I didn't get very far into it. 9 is one I haven't started yet, but it's on my list of games I would like to play at some point. Again, 10, like my bread and butter. Again, didn't touch 11. 12 was my second favorite. I played 13 and 13-2. Wasn't the biggest fan of the combat systems, so I didn't get very far in those. And I've played 15 to completion, and 16, I think I played about 3/4 of the way, and then I just kind of fell off of it because, I don't know, I like the older style where you have like an actual party of people and you're not just playing as one person. It's just... Anyway. Regardless, I enjoy Final Fantasy, so I enjoyed the Final Fantasy set. I enjoy Assassin's Creed, so I enjoyed the Assassin's Creed set. Not the biggest fan of SpongeBob, so I didn't buy the SpongeBob set. It just... There are things I like and things I don't like, and there are things that I wish Wizards had handled differently. I'm looking at the original Walking Dead stuff and why we have not seen more of those cards hit the market, because have you looked at some of the prices for those? Anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm just kind of tired, and I wish things were handled a little differently. But that said, I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to talk about something less depressing. That's it. I will be right back. And welcome back. Now, normally I would go over like a deck I'm currently working on or a deck that I have. But today I'm going to do something a little different. So, the past couple of years, me and some friends have been doing a Commander League where we each buy a box, we build from that box, and then we had like a point system, and at the end somebody would get the pot. The pot was just, we each threw $20 in. This year, one of my friends wanted to do it again, but do it different because he isn't that competitively minded, and me and my cousin and our other friend kind of are. So to change it up, instead of having a point system, he just wants to use this as a way for us to, gather, have fun, play some games. So I was like, alright, fine, whatever. So instead of us each buying a box of the same set, or just a box and then cracking it, we decided to do a draft. So we ended up buying 4 boxes. The 4 we went with were Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We had the space set whose name is escaping me at the moment. Foundations, and the newest Tarkir set. And so what we did was we numbered each box. We rolled to see where we were going to sit. And then we had a system where you roll a d6. You pick up whatever number you roll. On a 5 you got to choose, and on a 6 you re-rolled. And we did that until all of the boxes were empty. And then afterwards we started opening up packs and seeing like what we had. So I do believe we basically all ended up with 33 packs because 2 2 of them were 30 pack things of play boosters, and the other one was 36. Regardless, I ended up with just a metric ton of legendary creatures. I think I had the most at like 27, and I actually opened a repeat of one that I gave to my friend Scott, who only opened like 6. But the thought process is, we'll each build a deck, then we'll play them against each other for a few times, then we'll, take the pool and build something else and do it again. And I've got it narrowed down to, I didn't want to come out the bat with a 3-color commander, because I have several of those. But instead I ended up settling on a green-white with Halia Ascendant Cadet. So she's 2, a green, and 2 white for a 3/3 human soldier that says whenever she enters or attacks, put a counter, +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And whenever one or more creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So the thought process here is, what is it? Journey to the Blind Eternities? Anyway, that set and Thunder Junction both had a +1/+1 counter theme that was in white and green. And I realized I just had a metric ton of cards that cared about that, and they're all just kind of in a pile right now. I know I got to go through, pull some. I'm gonna end up cutting a bunch because I'm way over what I want for a deck. But I do want to go over just some of the cards that I have set aside for that for right now. And these are all some of the cards that are in the pile for what I want to build. I don't have a full list thought of yet, but I just kind of want to jump into it. So first up we have a Dawnstrike Vanguard, which is 5 and white for a 4/5 human knight. It has lifelink, and then at the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control other than this creature. So it's a go wide and provides, counters to go tall. So, and this deck definitely wants to have creatures turn sideways because Hylia's ability for whenever one or more creatures you control with a +1/+1 counter on them deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. We can draw up to 3 cards if we're hitting multiple of or all of our opponents. Next up we have a Bounding Felidar, which is 5 and a white for a 4/7 cat beast mount. Whenever it attacks while saddled, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and then you gain 1 life for each of those creatures, and its saddle cost is 2. We have a Drix Fate Maker, 3 and a green for a 3/2 Drix Wizard. When it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. It also has Warp for 1 and a green, and Warp is you can cast a card from your hand for its Warp cost, and then you exile it at the beginning of the next end step, and then you can cast it from exile at a later turn. We've got an Inspiring Call, which is 2 and a green for an instant to draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible till end of turn. I'm not entirely sure how to say this, but Dusyut Earth Carver, 5 and a green for a 4/4 Elephant Druid with Reach, and when it enters, Endure 3. So Endure is another of those abilities that's from the Tarkir set. It was in the Abzan. I keep wanting to say Shard, but it's Wedge. The Abzan Wedge. Next up we have a Giant Beaver, which is 3 and a green for a 4/4 Beaver mount. It has Vigilance, and whenever it attacks while saddled, put a counter on a creature that saddled it. It has Saddle for 3. We have the Lux Knight Breacher, which is 3 and a white for a 2/2 human knight, and enters with a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature each other creature and or artifact you control. We have a good old Scavenging Ooze, 1 and a green for a 2/2 ooze. For a green, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, put a counter on this creature and you gain 1 life. Inspirited Vanguard, 4 and a green for a 3/2 human soldier. When this creature enters or attacks, it endures 2. I should actually... so endure is you do one of 2 things. You either put, X +1/+1 counters on the creature that endures, or you create an XX spirit creature token. So in this deck, we're mostly looking to put the counters on the creatures. Next up, we have the Descendant of Storms, which is a single white for a 2/1 human soldier. When this creature attacks, you can pay 1 and a white. If you do, it endures 1. So it can, constantly grow itself. Next up, we have the Weftblade Enhancer. 5 and a white for a 3/4 Drix Artificer. When this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures, and it has Warp for 2 and a white. So again, you can pay 3, put it into play, get the counters. At the end step, it goes away, and then you could play it again for 6 at a later turn. Next up, we have the Mossborn Hydra. 2 and a green for an Elemental Hydra with Trample. It enters with a counter on it, and it has a landfall ability. Whenever a land you control enters, double the number of counters on this creature. And it is, a 0/0. Next up, we have the Treetop Snare Spinner. For 3 and a green, it is a 1/4 spider with Reach and Death Touch. And for 2 and a green, you can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. Next up, we have the Prairie Dog, which is 1 and a white for a 2/2 squirrel. It has lifelink, and at the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Prairie Dog. And then for 4 and a white, until end of turn, if you would put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, you put that many +1 +1/+1 counters on then instead. Next up, we have the Sheriff of Safe Passage. 2 and a white for a 0/0 human knight. Sheriff of Safe Passage enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it, plus an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each other creature you control. And it has Plot for 1 and a white. So, the way Plot works is you pay 1 and a white, exile the card from your hand, and then you can cast it on a future turn as a sorcery without paying its mana cost. Only at sorcery speed. And then the card that actually pushed me into wanting to build this is Oroboroid. It's 2 green for a 1/3 plant worm. At the beginning of comment on your turn, you put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is this creature's power. So the way I thought about it is, if you play Oroboroid on turn 4, then you go to combat, you put 1 counter on everything that you have. Then on turn 5, you play Halia. You put the counter she makes from entering on Oroboroid, which makes it 3 power. So then when it attacks, everything gets +3. That's kind of the way I was thinking about this when I built the deck, or at least started pulling cards for it. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for today. I don't know, man. I'm still here. I'm still making my content because it really does help to just sit down and ramble. Particularly with how things are going. But that said, I'm still here. I'm still kicking. Because, well, there's too many people to prove wrong. But that's it. I'm going to call it there. So I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulvey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo, And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.